I'm gonna make Maomao cosplay. So my plan was to cut some squares at the back, some rectangles at the front, and also some rectangles for the sleeve. But I realized the sleeve is a bit different. It's not the typical square sleeve. They have a bit of curve in it. So after some research, those sleeves are called Cuihu sleeve. It's usually been used in the Tang, Qing, and Ming dynasty. And after going down a bit deeper, I found that Maomao costumes are more towards the Ming dynasty. So since I'm into the rabbit hole, I was thinking of doing Maomao cosplay in a more historically accurate, kind of, in the beginning. It changed at the end, you'll see. So let's make the top. After searching Ming dynasty hanfu pattern, I realized there's a seam in the middle of the bodice. So basically there is 2 parts for the back and 4 parts for the front. And another thing, hanfus at that time doesn't have any seams at their shoulder parts, so I have to connect the front and the back part pattern together. Okay, so I got my pattern and also my big long main pattern. How I did the pattern was I opened my Illustrator and then I found the Ming Dynasty hanfu pattern on Pinterest and I enlarged it and adjusted to my size.
Well, that's the short way of explaining. If you want the long way, I'm not the right person to do it because I'm not a professional. I'm so sorry.
But comment below if you guys want the pattern so I can just put it up somewhere and give you the link at the comment. I don't know. To sew this bodice is very direct. First you sew the back side together, then you sew the sleeve to the bodice, and you just have to sew the sides. It is done. So far the fitting is very good. I like it. I still find it weird they have a seam in the middle, but I'm just follow history anyway. So up to the next step. Okay, before we move on into making the collar, I know what you guys going to say. The color is not accurate. I try my best to find the right color for Maomao, but after I saw this green fabric, I kind of fell in love with it. Like, don't you like it? All the flowery detail. But yeah, it's not accurate. And Maomao's color was supposed to be like those leaf color. But don't worry, I have a thing to fix it. Fabric dye. It's actually my first time trying to dye fabrics. So after watching a few YouTube tutorials and also reading the instructions, let's get on to it. I got some warm water. I didn't measure it because I don't have any measurement tools. And also some paper cup to dilute the powder first. Well, step 1, I need to... The powder got into me. Dilute the fabric dye. Then I'm just gonna pour it inside and just stir it in. So basically, you add 1 tablespoon of salt per liter, and for silk, you add 50 ml of vinegar. I'm using satin, so vinegar. Didn't even measure how much water I put, and also I don't have any measurement cups to measure the vinegar, so I'm just gonna pour it until, I don't know, my ancestor whisper to me to stop. Oh, actually my vinegar is getting, it's only a bit, so I'm just gonna use all of it. Okay, let's start with some patch dry. I don't really see a major difference. Maybe it's not a lot of dye I put, but I already put 1 packet though. But then again, I was supposed to put inside for 20 minutes, so let's just try. I hope it works. Yeah, I was supposed to wetten the fabric first before dyeing it, but I forgot. Now we just have to wait for 20 minutes. So it has been 20 minutes. Honestly, I don't see any difference in the fabric color. I feel like it's the same. I even dumped in some yellow fabric for the sleeve because I want the sleeve to be a bit darker. And because I don't really see any change, I tried to use a patch fabric using white fabric. The white fabric has like those light green colors, so something did change. But maybe I couldn't see the results that much because the fabric is already green. But even though the white fabric become green, it's not really the dark green that I wanted. It's just like mint green. So I'm gonna wash it out and see how it looks like when it's dry. Okay, I don't see it. This is the previous fabric and this is the fabric that I have dyed. Honestly, it only has a minor difference. So previously, the fabric was kind of green, yellowish kind of color. And the one that I have dyed turns into more pure green kind of color. It's still not what I want, but you can see obvious colors between the yellow fabric that I have dyed and the one that I haven't dyed. The one that I've dyed is a bit more like greenish kind of yellow, and the one is just pure yellow. And this is the white fabric that I have tested. It turns out to be a bit more blue mint, not really green mint. So right now the color is not really what I want. So round 2 of fabric dye. I'm so frustrated right now. So after the second dye, I thought, it's not the green that I want, so let's dye some more with the new dye that I bought, the Dylan powder dye. It turned back to the original color. Like previously, at least you can see some minor small difference between the original fabric color and the one that I dye. Like the fabric color is like a bit of yellowy greenish, and then the one that I dye becoming like green, you know. But this, after I dyed for the third time, it went back to the original color. You say this is the original fabric. It went back to the original color. And at this point, I'm just too tired and I waste a lot of money on the dye, so I'm just gonna use this green color. I don't care anymore. Okay, now we're gonna do the sleeve. Okay, for the length of the sleeve, it's really up to you, but mine is 6 inches, and the width I decided to do 3.5 inch. And my seams allowance are half an inch for each side, so it's 1 inch in total. So my total width will be 8 inches. For the length, it will be the same thing. It's 6 times 2 plus my seams allowance, so the total is 13 inch. Yeah. If your fabric is thin, you can just strip it off. It is easier and the line will be more straighter. And then we're gonna close up at the end by sewing it here. And you will get this circle. Before putting the sleeve, I already sewed the lining. I actually forgot to buy green lining, so I'm just gonna use whatever lining fabric that I have right now. And I have this yellow color pongee fabric. I don't know what it's for, but it's fate. So I wanted to hide the sleeve and the collar seams, so the bottom part will be the last part where I will close off the entire garment. You just have to turn your garment to the wrong side and fill it up with the lining on the wrong side too. This is the wrong side, and the inside is also the wrong side. So the right side will be facing each other. Now you got your circle, you just have to squish it in the middle of the lining and also in the middle of the main fabric. Lining, yellow, main fabric. Squish together. So it will look like this. You can see the wrong side of the green fabric, the wrong side of the lining fabric, and you cannot see the yellow circle because it's squished in the middle. So now you just have to sew around it. I'm not really that confident in my sewing, so I'm just gonna sew by hand first. Then after that, I will proceed to my sewing machine. Now, all you got to do is just flip everything inside out. You pull the lining out, and then you shove it back in. Okay, bad news. It won't flip the way that I wanted, it become like this. The inside part is connected and it become one big circle. And I don't know how to make the lining go inside. So currently my plan is to just remove one of the sleeve and resew it somehow. Okay, I figured out. You just have to make sure that the fabric facing each other like this, instead of both facing inside out together. The sleeve is done. The color is pretty simple. It's just two rectangles mashed together. So this is the fabric that I dyed 3 times. The first round, it turns a bit like mint blue. The second and third round, it finally turned into like mint green, which is what I wanted. I think so far this is the only successful fabric dye that I had done, even though it's only like 10% part of the costume. And the main costume doesn't even change the color. The first thing I'm gonna do is sew some interfacing on the dark green fabric so it has some structure, since this fabric is quite slippery. Okay, I will try my best to explain how to sew the light green color fabric to the dark green color fabric. So this is the middle line of the dark green color fabric, and this is the width of my light green color fabric after being sewn onto the dark green color fabric. Since I'm using half an inch allowance to sew, I'm gonna mark half an inch allowance here. So this will be where I put my fabric as my guideline. So before I'm gonna sew the fabric, I'm gonna fold it first because I don't want to have any sewing marks here. And this will be my sewing line. So when I fold it, it'll be like this. Clean. Yeah. Ta-da! Look how pretty it is. For the front part, like I said, I just sew it and then fold it around so I can hide the stitch. But for the back part, I just basic stitch on it because you cannot see it anyway, so what's the point? Now it's time to sew it to the bodice. Okay, to sew the collar is pretty simple. It's just like the sleeve. You have to smash the collar in between the lining fabric and the main fabric to hide it. So I already pinned the collar, but I haven't sewn it yet. So you can see this is the main fabric and the lining fabric is been hidden. So how I'm gonna sew it, I'm gonna flip it inside and sew it from here. After sewing the collar, I'm gonna use a pinkish here to cut off the edges. Now is for the final part of the bodice, which is the straps. So to make the straps is pretty simple. You just have to cut 2.5 inches of long fabric, and you just have to fold it and sew it on together. And then you can cut off the excess using pinkish shears or just normal scissors. You can skip that step if you want, but I find it easily to fold it over after trimming it down a bit. Then I'm gonna use this tool. So you just basically shove it in. Oh, I bought it at Daiso, by the way, but I'm not really sure what's the tool name. Put the pin inside and pin it to the fabric. Then you just have to pull it out. Like so. Ta-da! Very easy. Now all you gotta do is iron to flatten it out and just sew the sides. Then you can just sew it onto the bodice. Maybe it's just me trying my best to get color accuracy. I even dyed the fabric 3 times and it didn't really work. And I got frustrated over it. Maybe I just need a break from it. But I guess I just have to move on with the color. Or maybe if I close one eye, the color will be pretty again. Or maybe not. But anyway, I'm just gonna move on to making the skirt now, since I'm done making the top. So for Maomao skirt, if I were to do it the normal way, I will have just do a normal circle skirt and probably gather it up and finish it with a rubber waistband or maybe a zipper. But since I want to do a historically accurate hanfu, then that skirt is actually a wrap pleat skirt. So the current modern pleat skirt right now usually finish up with a zipper, but back then a zipper doesn't exist, so they have to just tie it up. So I'm gonna do it that way. The type of skirt that I will be doing for Maomao is called a knife pleat skirt. I won't be going into details on how to sew a knife pleat skirt since you can just find YouTube tutorial almost everywhere. But here's the issue. I didn't bought enough fabric. I bought around 2 meters of fabric. I actually pleated the skirt with some pins and tried it out around my waist, but yeah, it didn't work. It's not enough. So my second plan was, since the fabric that I bought is quite long, I was planning to divide it by half and use it the other half as extra to attach it. Oh, so for my pleat size, I use 2 inches. So every pleat requires 6 inches, but you can use whatever sizes do you want. And I don't really measure the length that I needed because I use all of my fabric. As long you can wrap it around your waist, then you're all good. Before sewing the waistband, I decided to add some pockets into the skirt. So my skirt is on the right side, so this is where I wanted to put the pockets. All I have to do is just get a square piece of fabric and sew a straight line here. So there will be 2 small lines side by side each other like this. And then you just have to cut in between those sewing lines. And then you just have to shove the fabric in like this. This is after I iron the pockets to look neater. Now you turn it around, grab another rectangle fabric and just sew around it. I forgot to record this, but basically I made my waistband a bit wider since my skirt ended up getting a bit shorter at the end, and I tried to cover it up with a wider waistband. This is the finished skirt. I also sew a long strap at the end of the skirt. Is how I made the strap for the bodice as well. I also overlocked the raw edges at the end to make the seams look cleaner. And you're supposed to make some holes to wrap around the skirt later on. But basically on how I made the holes is I just use buttonhole technique. You just make zigzag stitches and then rip the fabric on the inside. So basically the skirt is done. So I think I did a pretty good job on the costume. But there is some few things that I don't like it, like the pockets here. I think I sewed it a bit wrong. So you can actually see the green fabric for the pockets. And I'm not sure why the hem for the bottom part here is a bit wrinkly. I already ironed it out, but it's still like that. So that's one of the things. I even sewed the ribbon. It's just one big rectangle line and I just fold it into a ribbon. And I know it's not really accurate, but I just gotten lazy at this point because the shoot is tomorrow. And now the sewing project is officially finished. So that is all for Maomao cosplay. The whole video was about historically accurate Maomao, kind of. There's a reason why I said that. Like the first one, I used satin fabric in the first place with all the flowery and leafy pattern, which I don't think is accurate for Maomao since she's a servant in the palace and not really a noble. And then I tried to dye the fabric, and my sewing technique also, I don't think I sew it historically accurate. So I think for the most part my sewing pattern is historically accurate, but the process of making the costume is not really. But yeah, it's actually quite fun to try to attempt a historically accurate hanfu, which I never tried before. Like I said, if I was to do the normal way, it would have been a lot easier. But I really wanted to try making hanfu the correct way back then. Thank you, Sei, for becoming my jinshi and plan this cosplay together with me. Big thank you to Thanks for being our photographer all the way from Japan. And thanks Liz for helping us out with the shoot and taking videos for me, and also Brian who took care of all our bags while the 4 of us go and hunt for pictures. I hope you guys enjoy watching this video, and this is it for Maomao cosplay project. I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!
Because it's inconvenient to vlog. Oh.